There's a moment most people never really talk about. It doesn't arrive during a breakup. It doesn't happen in the middle of an argument. It happens in something far less noticeable. You're sitting across from someone you care about. A ceramic cup warms your fingers. The table has a faint scratch running through the wood grain. Their phone lights up between sentences, briefly illuminating their face before they look back at you. Everything looks normal, but something doesn't fully settle. Not enough to explain, just enough to register. Then, without warning, a thought appears. I could be replaced. Not dramatic, not loud, just certain enough to linger. And once it appears, the atmosphere of the moment changes. You start noticing details you would have otherwise ignored. The way their eyes drift toward the phone screen a fraction faster than before. The pauses between your sentences that feel slightly longer than expected. The ease in their expression when they laugh at something you didn't say. Nothing obvious, nothing you can point to directly, but enough to make your presence feel optional. And slowly, without deciding to, you adjust. Your voice loses a bit of weight. You stop finishing every thought. You choose words that take up less space in the conversation, because somewhere underneath all of it, a conclusion begins forming. If I take up less space, I might be harder to lose, but this feeling didn't start here. It didn't begin in this moment. It started much earlier. Back when attention wasn't steady enough to predict, a door that was sometimes open, sometimes already closing before you reached it. A conversation that changed tone mid-sentence without explanation. A look that suggested you should understand something that was never said out loud. So, you adapted. You became observant of everything unspoken. A shift in posture, a delay before answering your name. The way silence felt different, depending on who was in the room. At the time, it helped. It kept you alert. It kept you prepared. But over time, something changed. Because now, you don't just notice differences, you interpret them. They're pulling away. They're more interested in someone else. I'm becoming less important here, even when nothing concrete supports it. And over time, that interpretation becomes a background assumption. That connection is something unstable. Something that requires maintenance. Something that can quietly expire without notice. This is where the shift happens. You stop experiencing the relationship as a shared space, and start experiencing it as a position you hold inside it. The one who is easy to talk to. The one who doesn't ask for too much. The one who understands without needing explanation. And positions, by their nature, can be replaced. Because if your value is tied to how effortlessly you fit, then it makes sense that someone else could fit just as easily, or even more smoothly. So instead of feeling anchored, you start feeling interchangeable. And once that feeling settles in, your mind begins a new process. It starts scanning for early signs of loss. A slower reply, a shift in tone at the end of a sentence, a moment where laughter happens slightly more naturally with someone else. Not because they mean anything in isolation, but because your mind is trying to predict the ending before it arrives. Sometimes, without realizing it, you even test the connection. You respond later than usual, just to see what changes. You soften your presence to see if it's noticed. You act unaffected while hoping something inside them reacts. And when nothing changes in the way you hoped, it reinforces the internal story. I knew it. Even though what's happening is far more complex than that single interpretation. Because feeling replaceable rarely comes from the other person. It comes from the internal rule your mind has learned, that your place in someone's life is something you must continuously earn. If connection feels dependent on how easy you are to be around, then it will always feel unstable, because anything that must be maintained in real time can also be lost in real time. In psychology, this often connects to anxious attachment patterns, but the label is less important than the lived experience. It's the experience of wanting closeness, while simultaneously preparing for it to disappear. of being present in a conversation, while also tracking how secure your place feels in it. That dual awareness is exhausting, because part of your attention is never fully in the moment. It's always running a second process in the background, monitoring, adjusting, predicting. But here's something that often gets missed. This way of seeing things didn't form randomly. It developed because, at some point, inconsistency was real enough to learn from, so your mind built a system to detect change early. That system was useful once, but now, it continues running even when the environment no longer requires it. A delayed reply becomes distance. A distracted glance becomes disinterest. A busy day becomes emotional withdrawal. The mind fills in the gaps automatically, so the real question slowly shifts. Not, why do people make me feel replaceable? But, why does my mind treat change as if it always means loss? And when that question settles in, something begins to loosen, because the focus moves away from controlling external behavior and toward understanding internal interpretation. Here's something most people don't fully register. You are not replaceable in the way your mind predicts. Not because you are superior, not because you are irreplaceable in some absolute sense, but because connection is not built from interchangeable parts. It's built from timing, shared memory, repeated presence, and subtle patterns of understanding that don't replicate cleanly in someone else. No one else steps into a relationship and recreates the exact way you exist inside it. But if that doesn't feel real internally, external reassurance won't hold for long. That's why reassurance fades quickly. Someone can say they care, they can say you matter, they can say they're not leaving, and for a moment, it lands. But later, the mind returns to its familiar pattern, because the belief was never external, it was internal architecture. So the shift isn't about becoming more secure through evidence. It's about changing how meaning is assigned in real time. Instead of asking, am I enough to hold this place? The question slowly becomes, am I showing up as myself here? That shift is subtle, but it changes the direction of attention from performance to presence, and presence cannot be easily replaced. This doesn't remove the fear instantly. There will still be moments when a delayed reply feels heavier than it should, when a quiet room feels like distance forming, when your mind returns to the same familiar conclusion, I could be replaced. But that thought doesn't have to decide the meaning anymore. It can be recognized as a pattern, a learned response, a protective system, a prediction, not a fact. And over time, something changes in how you sit inside those moments. You stop adjusting yourself automatically. You stop shrinking to maintain connection. You stop interpreting every shift as a signal of ending, and instead, you remain where you are, without turning every detail into evidence. That's where stability begins to form, not from certainty, but from not abandoning the present moment while waiting for it to fall apart. Because you were never meant to experience connection as something you must constantly secure. That belief was learned, and what is learned can slowly be unlearned, not through force, but through repetition of a different way of noticing. So the next time that thought appears, I could be replaced, it doesn't need resistance, just recognition, and then a quieter correction underneath it. This is a feeling passing through me, not a fact describing me, and in that space, even briefly, the moment becomes just a moment again. Not a prediction of loss, not a measurement of worth. Just two people sharing time that is still happening.